So, Martin, welcome to episode 63 of Illuminating Rounds. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you very much. Yeah, how are you?
I'm all right. I have to say, and we talked about this a little bit today, playing ASL in today's crazy events that are going on in the East and of Europe and everything does feel a little bit awkward and a little bit difficult. So I certainly did feel a little bit guilty is the wrong word, but I mean uncomfortable perhaps playing and enjoying the game that we usually love so much. So my thoughts are with everybody out there, and I guess yours are too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
pretty crazy situation.
Yeah,
we have viewers from Russia and from the Ukraine.
Yeah.
And whilst it certainly looks like it's, just awful what's going on. That it's a difficult situation for everybody. We're not political. I'm not political. I don't want to say anything that's wrong or it's going to offend anybody at all. So I'm going to leave it there. But it's all pretty grim. So yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, so today on Let's Watch Dave Get Diced.
Let's not give away too quickly the result of today's game.
Listen, you might see an amazing turnaround in a game that looked lost.
You might do.
But
you might do.
I've got to say, for once, not that it ever is, our game is not the highlight of today's episode. We are going to shortly be talking to Toby Pilling, who is, I think we could safely say, at least one of Europe's best players, if not the world. I mean, he's up there in conversations at least, and we know that there are some excellent players around, and Toby's certainly one of them. I'm excited to have a chat to him. I'm excited to see him on his webcam for the first time. This is a rare treat for us. So usually we have him on the end of the equivalent of a telephone line that we have to speak moves through, but he's going to be with us almost in person. So that's that. What have you been up to, Marty? Have you been doing anything exciting?
I had a friend over at the weekend, an old friend who lives relatively local, but obviously with COVID and him being busy in particular at work and things, but haven't seen much of each other. But Nick came over, and we had a game in this very room because my mum's moved into my office. That's where she sleeps now. So we actually played in the hall at home. I went out for a fantastic lunch, and we had a very, very good game. And Nick had a very overwhelming victory over me. It has to be said. I was thoroughly trashed. I think I lost the victory conditions on like the game turn 3 or something like that. It was a 6 or 7 turn scenario. So there was a CVP cap, and I exceeded the CVP cap. Yeah.
This is Nick Ranson, by probably his own his own admission is he plays a great game and is great fun to play with, but he's not the most competitive player in the UK scene, and it's great to hear that you got beaten because
thank you, Dave.
Because I can't beat you. So next week Nick's gonna be on the show giving you a game.
Yes. That would be cool. That would be very cool.
Brilliant. So first things first, I'm going to put a list up on the screen of all the players that I believe are in the tournament this year. This is the Patreon tournament for this year's not Play By Mail live, not live, but Vassal tournament. We're close to having. We still haven't got the last games in yet for the Play By Mail tournament, but we are close to having our pool of players ready for the tournament. That's going to be one game a month. We'll all play the same one. We'll get a nice diorama from Ian Willie again if he's able to do that. So that's that. So the players are up now. If you see your name is not on this list and you think you've let me know, just give me another reminder. I get a lot of spam in my emails and I sometimes miss them. But there's the list. And if you are desperate to get in, send me a very, very quick email and we'll get you in as well. But effectively, that's going to be the list that's going to be playing for this year's tournament. So, Martin, you're playing this year?
Well, I haven't seen the list yet. Is my name on the list?
If you nod your head now, your name will be on the list.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still thinking about it.
All right, consider yourself in.
Right.
So you're in. Okay. The next thing to talk about is the scenario we played today. So we played a scenario from the upcoming, not yet released pack. It's the March Madness pack by Grumble Jones. It's going to arrive on the SL Archive, and you can buy your own copies direct from the Kansas City Wargamers. It's going to be on the site from around about the 18th of March. So I need to check the code to make sure that I can push packs out when I'm not around, because I'm in Portugal that day. So just come back from America, see my sister, and now I'm off to Portugal. It's a tricky life I lead, you know.
Do you know what? That's pretty close to my birthday.
It's very close to mine, which is why
it's very good, actually, because our birthdays are almost exactly the same time, aren't they? And Ian Willie as well. Ian Willie's, I think Ian Willie's the same age as me as well. So
wow,
we're remarkably close.
Separated at birth, you two, no doubt. So we played a day at the museum by Grumble Jones. So we're going to flick through across to it right now.
Do we know what Grumble Jones is a reference to? Or is that actually the name of the? It's an unusual first name, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. Do you?
Yeah.
Do you know?
I don't know. Okay. Well, if anyone does, feel free to let us know.
If Grumble himself, Mr. Jones himself, lets us know, because he's been known to.
That would be great.
Yeah, he's been known to do that. Right. Okay, so let's flip over to the Vassal window here. So this is a day at the museum. So Martin, should we want to talk about what's going on and everything?
Yes, certainly. So obviously you can see you've got the British force there. Is it hex row F and to the right? And it's a very powerful force, isn't it? Because you've got 8648, so some of the best British infantry that there is. Well led, with a 9-2 and 8-1 and 8-0. A couple of light machine guns and a couple of bits. And there's some dummies out there as well. There's eight dummy counters out there.
That's right.
Equally tough force coming on from the left-hand side. My force of Germans, which are 11,658 SS squads with a Stug 3, all very, very well led, 3 -1 leaders, 9-1, 2 9-1s and 8 -1, light machine guns and a Panzerschreck. So 2 very, very high-quality forces coming face-to-face here.
Right, exactly. So we've got the victory conditions are slightly weird. Do you want to read the victory conditions out? Because they're
sure.
Weird.
They're very complicated, aren't they? Germans win immediately, and that's where we stopped, wasn't it? Germans win immediately at the end of game turn 3 if they control building I3, which is the big triangular building in the centre there. I think that would be quite a tall order to completely control that building by the end of turn 3. Failing that, the side with the most victory points at the end of the game is the winner. Both sides earn casualty victory points normally. The British additionally earn exit victory points for units exited off the west edge, and 1 victory point at the end of each game turn that they control building I3. So you'll have a little bit of a tally there. At game end, the Germans additionally earn 1 victory point for each German unbroken multi-man counter west of hex row H, which is the road. This additional victory point is doubled to 2 if the German unbroken multi-man counter is west of hex row L, which is just 3 hexes from the sort of the end of the board, isn't it? So a lot of kind of like counting, but slightly unusual, because this idea of multi-man counters counting means that a half squad is worth the same in victory points for the Germans,
right,
as a squad.
That's right. We just to clarify, we did clarify that with the guys from Kansas to confirm that we were playing it right, and that really is quite. We don't see that very often, do we? Where there's a significance in the half squads and squads were, in fact, squads effectively are a disadvantage. You might as well get your half squads over the line. Yeah. So that's kind of where we were. It's an interesting setup for me, because obviously that road is going to be very difficult to cross. There's the anti-aircraft gun in the middle here is unpossessed, and it has a random covered arc to start with as well. So that's kind of where it kind of sat in the middle of the road. And in theory, I can break it for victory points. And I don't have to go and possess it. I mean, that's the other thing. I can just leave it there. And I felt that it would be quite cool. I mean, you've obviously got like a 5 in 6 chance of possessing it from turn one. So I kind of thought that would be the way forward.
And you do get the victory points for it, as just possessing it, don't you? Yeah,
exactly.
Or destroying it. Yeah,
exactly. So I thought my setup was reasonably conservative. I think looking back, we'll talk about at the end of the game where I think I could have done better on my setup. But effectively, I thought I'd try to basically hold the top edge, which looked the more dangerous and more open area that you might struggle with. My dummies in J1. In theory, was supposed to look like a medium machine gun or a light machine gun, that was going to be able to lay a fire lane. And immediately I realised that my guys in I1 really should have been the guys in J1 because they're not doing a lot up in I1. The other thing to be like kind of important when we're dealing with the deluxe maps on Vassal is this little line of sight. So I'm looking here at the F5 squad. And whether it has line of sight down to, for example, B5 and D5, and of course it does because the squad naturally is down, on this edge here, and it is sometimes a little bit tricky. So, for example, we're going to have a little bit of kind of potential combat where you've got a unit in D0, and I'm constantly trying to figure out if I've got line of sight because it looks quite good because your kind of unit is kind of low down to this hex, and I keep wondering, and it's probably not because of the height of the woods and the far it comes down. But anyway, whizzing through this because it's a fairly quick scenario. You come flying down with the Stug. I can see it at some point here. This is my thing, and you give me a side shot, and I kind of double check with you that you're giving me a side shot, and you're happy to give me a side shot. And you do, and it's obviously it's a bit of a kind of like a Hail Mary shot here, but it's one of those shots where if I can hit you here on the side and kill that tank, the game's not won, but it's certainly going to make it a lot easier for me. So of course, turn nearly hit it. I think I missed by one there.
And you kept rate of fire as well, didn't you?
That's right, exactly. So, no, be careful because it was down. So,
it was down because it's captured use,
and non-qualified because it's
And
that was the first. We actually what we thought we'd do is we would write down our questions that we check on the rules for this just to talk through.
Your wrist was aching, wasn't it, by the time we finished the game?
It's too many jokes. So the key things here are that the rate of fire and the to hit value. So to hit gets +2 for non-qualified use. Rate of fire goes down by 1, and that's doubled. Both of those are doubled if it's an enemy weapon as well. So there's various combinations, but effectively the worst of all worlds, non-qualified and captured use penalties. You also use your red to hit numbers, which generally won't matter for a deluxe scenario like this. But anyway, upshot is we don't break the gun, which also the numbers come down as well for that. The other thing we checked even before this one was a rule that you've mentioned, and I'm sure I've probably mentioned as well a couple of times, is whether when recovery of a weapon, of a gun or probably a gun, whether you get a free covered arc change. And it was one of those rules that sounded like it would be correct, but we couldn't see that. So we think that's not correct, that if you recover a weapon, you couldn't just swivel the gun into any position. Obviously, you can do in lieu of firing during a fire phase, but and I think it's the prep fire and possibly a defensive final fire or something. You can do that, but not just when recovery. So anyway, we think we got all that right. Obviously, a miss on the tank, and he survives. More guys come on. So my decision here is whether or not to reveal my Piat here, or whether you might pull your tank into line of sight here for this 3-4-8. So instead, what I decided to do is, take a shot from the ground floor of I3, and you. I'm not gonna say anything, but you roll a double 1. So which
Starters, you mean to go on?
Yeah, well, but then you rolled a double 6 for your berserk.
Yes, that's true.
And so off he goes, and he's going to go berserk. So that's what's going on here. So goes berserk before.
And you kill him, don't you?
Yeah, before that. And again, another mistake here by me, I think. And so this is, I like to point these out because it makes somebody else a better player than me. I don't think the machine gun should be on the top floor of any building generally if it's not got line of sight to see over stuff, because obviously it stops my my fire lane. And in theory, if this was on the ground floor, I could just push that fire lane all the way down. And the
only occasional benefit is if you're scared of being a vehicle bypass freeze, isn't it? Which I think is probably unlikely in this situation because I've just got the one vehicle. It's quite vulnerable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I fire again, but luckily get a K result. So this is
good enough.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the beauty of a 9-2 leader. And
just for people to remember, you went berserk and he was KIA, and I haven't moaned about it at all.
You haven't.
Preparing you for later in the game.
That's very true. It's very true. So on comes some more guys. So we know we've got a line of sight. Do we get a line of sight? I didn't get a line of sight. I think I missed that. But anyway. So now this is interesting. These guys down here in F5 are a kind of key part to this defense, really, because I really want to stop you getting into E5 quickly. And by stopping you on the D5 and B5 hexes, I kind of felt like I did a little bit of that. This guy is very, very vulnerable, and I'm going to find out the bad way, really. So first things first, you move this guy here, and this is where we spot the line of sight. I don't know if you'd spotted this line of sight or whether, because it's a little bit weird.
I can't remember that. Yeah.
So I show you the unit. It's a half squad.
Oh, do you know, I think I had spotted it. I was quite happy for you to lose concealment. I think.
Okay, sure. So we get the break here. But crucially, and you're right to do it, because now he's first fired and it's a little bit of a weak position, and we're going to see what bad things happen now to a squad in this position. You very cleverly run this guy around, and I absolutely recognise the problem that I'm going to get myself into if this guy gets into, for example, F4. These are dummies in F3, which are just the worst place to defend this area. This is the one shot I needed to have. And obviously, I'm kind of hoping that you were just going to take a nice shot at some point in your advancing fire phase from perhaps D4 or D2 into F3, and that was going to waste your shots there. But instead, you just don't care, and you're coming through. And now I know I'm in trouble. If I break, if my first firing guy here breaks, this is trouble. So I have to break this guy. I absolutely have to break this guy. So the first things first is we're going to final fire here. And I pin you, I think. Yeah, it's a pin here, not
it isn't a pin, right?
Yeah, it's a pin. I think because it's a 6. I think it's a 6 flat. I was 6 down 1, and I think I rolled a 9 for an 8. Something like that. And so now you're going to come in, and this is the point. I can't take this shot now against these guys. Yeah. And that's pretty grim. So I have to hope now that you're going to basically, I've got to break this F4 guy. So another bad thing here, because obviously these G3 guys are dummies, so I can't even take a shot here. So these dummies are just doing terrible jobs. So I've now got to reveal my other peer, which I didn't really, or my first peer at least in the game. And it's only a half squad, so 6 flat shot here. Do okay, but you just pin again. And now I have to hope that these guys can survive. Otherwise, I'm going to be a squad down. And of course, we don't survive. Get the DM, and this is going to basically end up with surrendering because they can't route back into G5. And it's a bit of a bad start for me. So that's the first.
I told you that I woke up in the middle of the night because I'm going to take these guys prisoner because you can't route.
Yeah.
I woke up in the middle of the night worried that because I was pinned, I couldn't quite picture it, that you actually did have a way out, and that I sort of cheated by mistakenly taking your prisoners. And I was even thinking of contacting you in America to tell you, but when I looked at the board, obviously, It's quite correct.
It's brilliant. And that's why I play you, Artie, because your guilt will override everything else. So you take the prisoners a bit too early there, which don't worry, you're just a bit too keen there. So a little bit of advancing fire, but nothing really going on. You find the dummies in here. And my guys have surrendered, and we've got a little advance. And already I'm kind of a little bit nervous about what's going to happen here. But we obviously carry on. We're not going to give up that easily.
But that road's very difficult to cross, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt great about the taking a squad straight off.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to cross that road.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
So what do we've got? We've got a bit of a kind of skulk. I pushed the gun back down the road to get out of the way, skulk out of the way of everything. Your Stug has a shot into the I3 to gain acquisition. I moved some dummies back in here just to hope that they'll soak up some shots and kind of try to ask you don't cross this road here.
Yeah.
And I figure, okay, well, I'll make my strong point the I4. Now, in hindsight, I think that G3 is the place where I've got to be the strong point, because obviously the blaze here by SSR is quite important. And I guess the designers put that there to stop the Germans having this F2 place to give the G3 a bit of protection. And I think I'd have felt much more comfortable protecting this G3 because it kind of denies you a lot of hexes around here that you're effectively going to get into for this row house.
It's like an outpost, isn't it? A little outpost that I've kind of got to tackle it.
Exactly.
And I can only move through G4, which is protected by your force in the big building, and and the woods doesn't give you much protection, does it? So it might slow me down. Yeah.
Exactly. So again, some concealment. Advance the concealed leader in here as well to give a little bit of something. You hit me with smoke here, which I'm quite pleased with because it's effectively there's very little in there that's going to do you, and it's your last shot. So that's that, and we see that you are amassing for a nice attack. My pit squad up here has to reveal itself to try and take you on here in the woods. Doesn't do very much. And you are...
I'm actually still worried about you firing out that smoke at this point. I still haven't twigged that they're dummies.
Right. Exactly. So we're going to whiz on. A bit more advancing fire from you. Some good shots. Breaks my guys in G1. And at this point, I'm kind of... I know I've got at least a route path. H0 because of the pin guys, but it's feeling already a little bit dicey at the top there, given that I've got just these guys in J1 now available to try and stop the top guys coming on. We get some flames start to spread in the building. We route back. You push forward. We get into close combat with the gun. And here's something. So you drop the prisoners.
That's right.
And so we kind of check the rules on this, and we think that we're okay here. That you drop them at the start of their advance phase. Yeah. Now, in theory, you could have potentially moved the others in, but I'm not sure if you could have transferred them because they didn't start.
I don't think so. We probably should have read a little bit more carefully, but I didn't do it, so we didn't bother, did we? But I think the idea is that when you've got two units together, you can transfer support weapons and prisoners and advance to different places. I don't know that you can move in, transfer, and that unit move out. Right. But that would be one to double check, actually.
Yeah. So the upshot here is that you've got an unpossessed unit here. Now, we may have missed this because we didn't do a task check here. They may have been able to... It's because it may have been a close combat at this point. I don't know.
No, because they're still protected by the rule that the Germans can't just kill them without without declaring the. I'm pretty sure that they're okay.
So they're not, but they're not escaped at this point. We think, is that right, or that they?
Well, no, I think I don't know. Perhaps we should look them all up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So someone will help us out with that one. But
yeah.
for whatever reason, anyway, they're there, and
Yeah.
we'll assume that we failed the task check if we didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, they're not gonna survive a close combat anyway in there. But
I think they only do the close combat thing is when their guards are broken, isn't it? And there's no other good order units in the hex.
Okay.
I think that's when you do the task check. Yeah.
Okay. But you're able to push into F1 here, and I know you're a little bit concerned with the I3 guys, but we have the close combat that doesn't get resolved. It stays there, and obviously this is deluxe, and you could have declared hand to hand, but chose not to there. Then we get a double one for me. You had one with your you got a leader somewhere, and
yes.
I get one too. It's got the 7-0s, and I get my 8-0 leader jumping here, and that's quite lucky for me because gives me a little bit of a defense for the guys at the top. I prep fire into I think it's this G4 stack. I think is what's going on here.
Yeah.
And
this is the Piat, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
So the Piat.
So we did a random selection to see who is affected.
No, it was a K. No, it was a K. It was the K.
That's
result.
right. It was the K. That's right. Sorry.
Yeah, it's J1 to F1, and I get the K3.
Because the Piat affects everyone, doesn't it?
That's right. So it's and all that happens on my K3 is I wound your leader, and you pass the guys, and then we get the sniper that pins a guy up here. So I've seen better K3 results, but
yeah, I have to say, and actually, didn't I reduce your sniper at this point as well? I think it might.
You did. This is the exact
first time I've ever done that. I'm not sure. I've certainly tried to do it before.
Right. Yeah. So you've got a great chance here with, effectively 4 half squad equivalents and a 8-1 leader, and being my turn with that squad, not having to do a lot of those other guys. Exactly that. You roll the equivalent of double 1 because it's -4, I think, if not more. I think you had -4 plus another 1 for the leadership, and it TIs them and everything. But you bring the sniper level down to 3, which is a pretty good move. So I have a group of guys here that are going to opportunity fire because what I want to do is fire the squad at G4 with the assistance of the 8-1 leader, and so I'm going to opportunity fire those guys. And the Piat is going to fire into G4 as well. And obviously Piat's no back blast, so this is quite a nice shot. I get the 4, which is great. So I'm hitting on an 8 flat and then roll an 11 for no effect. And we then have the shot coming back in from the 9-2 with my 20 up 2 into G4 as well. And that's pretty ineffective as well.
I just rolled very low in all of those morale checks. Yeah,
exactly. I think was it one pinned guys at the bottom, and my
and of course you kill the escape prisoners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We accidentally both rolled for that. So at this point, I think I've still got these guys are gonna prep fire later on. So the guy you fire back and double 6, so you don't get all the luck. Double 6 back into these guys. A little bit of ineffective fire as well from F1 down into, I think it's probably J1 here, but nothing much goes on. And then we have the I fire into the melee as well. And the idea here is that I'm going to fire into these guys to basically try to get you to break, and obviously my guy can break back, or worst case, I can bring extra guys in. So if they both break, I can bring some reinforcements from I3 into the melee and kind of mop them up, just to try and slow you down really from there. Some more ineffective fire from me, and some dice rolls for the flames. So I kind of reposition, throw the leader in. I declare hand-to-hand close combat here. I think at this point, because you're 1 to 4, being pinned and everything, and I'm 1 to 1, so I get the number I need, which is my small victory in this scenario. And we're on to turn 3, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
So we have some prep fire.
We have fired the Panzer Shrek at the building.
And this is and then you fire the shot into this upper hex here. So I think you get I think it's a 1 check. I think here, the double 6 for the leader and 6 for the severity kills the 9-2. We then do okay on the morale checks, a couple of pins, but I think that was a 2 check. I think, and then the lost leader check just breaks everybody in that hex. And then you take another shot. There's an advancing fire shot coming up.
Yeah, it's an advancing fire shot, isn't it?
That's right. So the advancing fire shot comes from, I think, G1, is it?
Yeah, it would have been G1.
Yeah,
you can see
G1.
our counters on it,
Yeah. You roll a 3, and I get...
Which is your sniper.
Yeah. And everybody breaks.
You just do, yeah.
And then everybody
you
breaks.
called it at that point, didn't you?
That's right, yeah. Exactly.
And what I did, because I wasn't counting, and I should be counting, I hadn't twigged just how many of these counters were dummies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So basically, all of these guys are broken. These are dummies here, obviously. So there's nothing here. These guys are dummies, obviously, here as well. So effectively, all I've got left is a squad and a half, and these guys here. And at this point, I just think it's crazy for us to carry on.
So how do you feel about scenarios that go like that? I mean, we looked at the dice, didn't we? And I was, constantly, at least on average, one dice roll lower than you or whatever it was. But the fact is that I was, you couldn't pass a morale check with this high quality British force,
right?
And most of my shots are like a 3. I've rolled a 3 or 4. I kept activating your bloody sniper. Your sniper pinned me 3 or 4 times. So.
Yeah.
How do we feel that happens in this game sometimes?
I think we're in this kind of this mode where we play, and it's a little bit like how Toby talks about some players have luck. We're certainly attuned to the fact that I pick out when you have good rolls. I rolled some good rolls there as well, and we tend to not notice as much.
But of all the games, sometimes I think that we draw attention to it, and it's probably not really true. But in that game, that was true. I think in that game, it was true.
We looked at your morale rolls were 5.8, and mine were like nearly 8. And it was like you could have played this with Italians and you'd have been fine. You didn't need these SS guys.
You essentially failed something like 6 or 7 important morale checks in a row there. That's what took you to. And then you only had 8 squads in the your order of battle.
Yeah. But I mean, interesting, and you're right, and I could definitely point to that and say I was genuinely lucky. But I think my placement of the F5 troops, going back to the F5 guys down in in the woods, and not having the strong point in G3, I think that's what probably lost me the scenario, or certainly got me to the point where I couldn't do it. But I think you're very good on the attack with good morale troops. You're happy to push hard. You're happy to look for the encircling shots and things like that when you get a chance. You didn't take very many risks with your tank. I know there was a couple of chances there, but you smoked it out very well and things like that. So I don't know. I think sometimes it's lazy from, let's say, me to point at good dice rolls, bad dice rolls, and see and to use that as an excuse. And I do.
Yeah, it is lazy, but it's I don't mean that's criticism, but it's important to look at the game as well and how you could have played it better, isn't it?
Right. Exactly.
And I do think you're right. That G3 position didn't really occur to me. I just thought, why on earth have they got these flames in F2? What's that all about? It never occurred to me, but actually it makes G3 a very defendable position, doesn't it?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But it was I don't know whether to say. I mean, obviously we're technically we're the first ever people to play this scenario in the wild. After play testing, so it's very difficult to say whether it was balanced or not. The other thing I think is that there was it's certainly a fair bit of record keeping in terms of the scenario victory points, which were a little bit tricky. And I think had this gone to the wire at the end, we would have been scrabbling around because we hadn't have been checking, for example, the number of victory points I was catching each turn for holding on to the I3 building. So you've got to be aware of that for the scenario. You've got to be quite on your toes for the victory points. And
right from the beginning. Great.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a huge fan of those scenarios because the victory conditions, because I always feel like I should be doing more maths in my head throughout the game.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like I'm trying to reserve that for hold on to this building or stop X points getting off or whatever, as opposed to trying to constantly kind of calculate where are we on the swingometer of who's winning this. But that and the other thing being the idea of deploying to give you double the number of points.
That feels
a little bit
like a gamey element rather than a war recreation element.
Yeah, exactly. Which now I don't doubt that there's some. So the thing is that for example, if you have a prisoner at the end of the scenario, that can make a massive difference because you can use that prisoner to deploy your squads in the last few turns, and that's a big deal. That might be a difference between a win or a loss. And like you say, it doesn't feel like it should make any difference if there's a squad or two half squads in the same building that suddenly they're worth double the points. But having said that, I'm all for designers to push the bounds of what we usually see. And it's another tactical decision I overlaid on top of what could be, a fairly dry-ish scenario. There's not a lot going on there. So, it's a set of row houses that, you're defending and attacking across a road, really. So there is some nice spice in there for that. And the only other thing I'd say is the gun being unpossessed at the start. That felt like, it's always, 5 out of 6 chances to possess that gun. Is the question about whether or not, why worry about that as an SSR? I don't know if that's necessarily. There's probably a historical reason for.
Yeah, no doubt there is. I do think there's a certain amount of purity about this scenario actually, in terms of like crossing a road in an urban environment. It's a kind of there's something quite pure about pure ASL city fighting kind of. Yeah. And you haven't got flamethrowers and the sort of things you might have in Stalingrad and things like that. Yeah. So it's proper fire and manoeuvre, isn't it? And smoke and trying to get across a road. I think it's quite an interesting puzzle.
And the Stug is always quite nice as well because it's not too much with it, but actually it's quite a nice tank to have a few toys with you, so you can do some interesting things. You've got some good reliability of smoke there, and you've got obviously the 8 morale SS troops that will get you out of trouble when you need to run across a road or something like that. It's good. So overall, I'm happy with the start. I thought it was good fun, and looking forward to playing more from the pack. So I'm sure we'll also. Big thanks to the Kansas City guys and Grumble Jones for this one, and hopefully you guys will see it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a giveaway. We're going to do this week. We're going to do a giveaway for a copy of the Toby's article, basically the From the Cellar pack, which also, by the way, comes with I think 10 scenarios as well as part of the just as part of the pack, not necessarily referenced by the article. Yeah. So my idea for whether you can win this is a Patreon giveaway. Is if any patrons want to put on the comments of this video just their tactical tip for defense, just any tip that they want to give, as small or as in depth as they want to give, put a comment in there. We'll read them all by the start of the next episode that we start to record, and we'll pick a random.
Yes, random. Not we won't be trying to pick the best. No, we'll just random. Yeah,
we'll pick a random. So just put a comment in about your favourite tactical tip of defending, and have a chance to win a copy of From the Cellar Pack 11, patrons only, and that's that.
And just finally, really big shout out to Paul Schwarfheid, who we apologies if I didn't get your name right, Paul, but he's become a patron this week as well. So thank you very much to Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, and to all the other patrons as well that are sticking with us. So we really appreciate it. Oh, first of all, so welcome, Toby, to the show. Thank you very much for being with us today, and also for all the help you've done for us. In the past episodes, you've had a little bit of a credibility to our shuffling counters around.
Well, I particularly felt part of the team when you and you gifted me with one of those marvelous coffee mugs. You know, I sort of. You said I was offering you some money. You said no, you're part of the team. I thought, yeah, that's when I truly felt that I joined
Your
the
worth,
fraternity.
your worth is about £17, and that's we couldn't have said it better, you know. So, thank you anyway. I mean, Martin and I, we definitely get some requests to interview more kind of, you know, personalities, you know, in the ASL scene, and you're definitely one of them. So thanks for being part of this. And
So why did you do that, Dave?
because
Personalities.
he hasn't got a lot of personality. It's more of a machine. It's a Terminator across the board. Toby, thank you again. Tell us a bit about how you got started with ASL. I think that's the first thing that we would always ask.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, it was through Basic Squad Leader, I suppose. Yeah, I used to play my next door neighbour a lot, Adam Oliver, and he got me into board wargaming. And so I'm guessing this was sort of mid 80s to late 80s. I had a game of the old, you know, the what do they call it? The programmed instruction. You know, you start off scenario 1 and on to scenario 2. So I think I did the first 3 scenarios. You know, I liked it. Went up to university at Newcastle upon Tyne, and that's when I really got into it. And my sort of, I guess my big mentor ASL wise is a guy called Mike Rudd, who still lives up in Northumberland, and is absolutely superb player. You know, did attend a few tournaments early on in the UK. He's sort of around 97. But doesn't do so anymore. And you know, he's still got all the kit, plays the odd game of ASL. But I mean, how can I put it? He's as good as I am, if not better, you know.
At 97?
Sorry?
Did you say at 97?
Yeah, it would have been 97, wouldn't it? So, like, you know, do you remember when Intensive Fire started off, didn't it, in Shrivenham? Do you remember that, or was that before your time? So
before my time.
Okay, yeah. So it was. I mean, funny enough, I don't live far from Shrivenham now. In fact, my mate lives around the corner from where it all happened, all started off. So yeah, that was sort of 95 to 97, and there was obviously Trev was still running Berserk. So anyway, getting back to it. So yeah, that's where I started to play all the time in university. It's sort of so we're talking sort of 89 to about 91, 92, and I'll tell you what. I was getting my ass kicked week in, week out, you know. There's no doubt about that. So I think you had a discussion, didn't you, as I recall, about how to improve at ASL, and if you play someone a lot better than you, you know. Well, that was my situation, is I was playing someone a hell of a lot better than I was, and I was getting trounced. But it's funny enough, somehow I was able to improve my game. And the interesting thing was, before the tournaments, I didn't know how good I was. I didn't know how good he was. All I knew was he was better than me. And so, you know, we played, you know, a hell of a lot, and you know, I gradually got the odd win here and there. And then, you know, when I started attending tournaments, I was like, oh, I'm not that bad. You know, Mike's still better than me. And it was sort of at that moment that I guess my skill level sort of improved more, I think, you know, having a wider range of opponents until, you know, I was able to start winning. I think, what was it, did I win Blackpool in 98 or something? But anyway, and then I was sort of, I was very good, you know, reached a good level. But basically, yeah, the way I improved was by playing someone a hell of a lot better than me and just taking those hits, you know, and just coming back for more, because I love the game so much,
Right.
you know.
Did you
like as a student, I had loads of time.
Right. Did you? Because
I should have been studying, but yeah, I was studying the map boards more. You know? Not memorizing every line of sight. I'll tell you that now.
Most
even
people
don't.
Most people, when they come to a tournament, they lose their first 5 games and they get battered, and they suddenly realise like it's a big, you know, they're a very small fish in a big pond. It must be very interesting for you to have come and start, you know, presumably winning, you know, a few games, if not many games at tournaments right at the start. So do you think that was just your opponent being so good at what he'd done, and had he played other players, or was it just like almost between the two of you?
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I was just extremely lucky that I was playing Mike. It's like basically I would say he's the best in the UK. So it's just by pure chance that I was playing him all the time, and so I had I was taught effectively by the master, as it were. And he's still better than me.
It's incredible.
And he and he's lucky as well. Which helps. He's the only guy I know who can go. Like he'll bring down a sort of what do you call it, pre-reg OBA on my conceal guys, at the start of a game, and if he gets it, it's like he just rolled it. He's put all his eggs in one basket. If he gets it, he wins. And I'm going like, yeah, okay, chit draw, black, right, extra chit draw, black. Oh, okay. Is it accurate? Yes. Right, it's game over. I would never do that. You see, I would never take those risks. But he does, and so as I say, anyway. So yeah, it was just pure chance. And then the other lucky thing was I ended up when I moved to Oxfordshire for my first proper job. I was looking on the. Do you remember View from the Trench? I think Pete still does it. That list of all the UK players. So I was looking at who's living around me. I ended up finding Peter Bennett in Buckinghamshire, neighbouring county. And again, he's just as good as I am, but he's a much slower player. That's the only thing. And he had a bad experience at Berserk back in the day, and it put him off tournaments. But he's still my regular opponent now.
Oh wow!
And it just by pure chance that my two main opponents I ended up playing were, as I say, Mike's better than me, and Pete's just as good as I am. And that was just and of course when you're playing regular opponents, you take each other up a bit.
Yep.
But as I say, Mike took me up the greatest level, and Pete the rest. And Neil Brunger, I knew at university because he lives not far from Newcastle. So and he's a great laugh. So we used to play there, and we play now. So Neil taught me all he knows. Yeah, and 5 seconds later.
Did you, back in the day when you started, obviously there were fewer scenarios, did you replay scenarios over and over to kind of perfect them, or was it a case of playing lots of different ones?
I think this idea of replaying scenarios, it's a sort of myth I don't mind just letting live, because it sounds as if, I can psych out players because they think I've played something 10 times, but, I only ever play scenarios. If they were coming up in a tournament, I'd try to pitch scenarios, so if you've got a 5-round tournament, that's 15 scenarios. You can ditch 5 from the go, from the outset. That leaves you with 10. So I just try to play each one of those once, really. And sometimes I just try to get a couple of turns in of one, because I often find that if you get 2 turns in of a scenario, you get an awful lot. You get about 80% of your knowledge of how a scenario turns out by doing 2 turns. And if you play it out to the end, you gain a little more inkling, but you get a lot of information from playing a scenario for 2 turns. I find you're just looking at the setups, looking at the initial routes towards victory will give you a good inkling. So that's all I ever did. So I don't play. Again, I'm sort of busting this myth here of my intense knowledge and of all lines of sight of every board that's ever been published. But sadly, no, I never had the time to do that much. But I did try to at least get a couple of turns in of every scenario in a tournament. Generally speaking, I would try to do that.
Do you find that the level of play is still improving in the players you play, or do you think it's plateaued, or is it slowly going down as people kind of dip in and dip out again?
There's different. We're in an unusual situation in the UK, aren't we? Because hardly anyone plays abroad. That's the problem. Good old Dave Schofield always said to me, "Oh, Toby, I think I won Berserk or Heroes something like 9 years out of 10." And Dave would always mock me and say, "You're a big fish in a small pond, Toby." Big fish in a small pond. And to a certain extent, he was right, because, who goes abroad? Derek Cox, a couple of other guys might go to Aslock now and again, but hardly anyone goes regularly to, say, Copenhagen or Arnhem, So I was the only guy who was doing it, really, pretty much on a regular basis. And what I would say is that that helps improve ones play.
Mm.
So I think in the UK, we've got a different set of players. So the European, the top Europeans are better than our, players. And I think the general level of play in Europe is higher than here. And in America, it's slightly different in that, they've got a lot of average players, but they've got some superb players as well. Quite a few superb players. Luckily, my sort of bucket list business, I think I played every single one of the top players in the world except one, that I wanted to. And he came up a bit later on, which is Bill Cirillo. I've never played Bill Cirillo.
Yep.
And I've never played Mike McGrath either.
Okay. Okay.
And unfortunately, last year, I think he went to Copenhagen during all the COVID stuff, and I couldn't even fly over there even if I'd wanted to. So, but yeah, and Americans are faster players than we are.
Yeah.
So I've always said to I would say the other top tournament players in the UK would be, I would say is Craig,
Yeah.
and Mark Blackmore, Craig Benn and Mark Blackmore,
Yeah.
I think Craig's an excellent player. Mark's extremely good and aggressive, and at his best, if you give him sort of attack with SS, lots of AFVs, he's superb.
Yeah.
And they could each of them could do well in Europe. And I keep telling them, go over to Europe, go to Copenhagen, but they haven't done it yet.
Right. Yeah. It's yeah. And when you travel, for example, I know you've travelled to Copenhagen and you've travelled Grenadier. I think you've done as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I played Grenadier. I played one in Lille, I think.
Right.
Arnhem when it was going on. Yeah.
Are you going there to win it, or are you going there for fun? I mean, what's the, or is it a mix of both? Is that the easy answer, just a mix of both, or are you actually going there to try and win these tournaments? Is that your kind of goal?
I mean, why would I not? You can do both, can't you? You can go to have fun and win.
Yeah.
I suppose. The further I go and the more money I'm spending, I'll make sure I do the preparation. So I would, and I think when you're in my situation, I'm not actually that bothered about it now. But the other thing you play for to a certain extent, or you're aware of, is your raw rating or area rating, whatever it is, the area rating, so which is your world ranking, is your seeding, and so if you're in competitive games, you lose a game, you're losing tons of points, and it's difficult to pick them up. So they're serious games. Obviously, I have fun, but I go to have fun, see often friends who I know. But most of the time I go to win. I think I went to Copenhagen once a couple of years ago, maybe 4 years ago, only to play friendlies.
Okay.
Because I remember why, because I didn't have the time to prepare. I couldn't play the scenarios in advance. I was so busy. I thought I can't give it my all. Therefore, I'll just play friendly games, have fun.
Right.
That's my premier thing. And I won't bother competing. So as I say, I'll only try. I'll go to have fun, but I also intend to try to win. Yeah.
So if you was to give yourself like a percentage chance of winning, how much lower is that percentage chance if you haven't looked at the scenarios? Do you feel it's a real? I mean, is it from a 10 out of 10 chance of winning to a 5 out of 10? I mean, what kind of difference do you think it makes?
Well, I suppose a good test of that is Founding First Fire tournament, isn't it, in Blackpool, where everyone is usually presented with brand new scenarios, And the first year they did that, which is a superb tournament, by the way. I love that tournament, and that's I can find it easy to go to that because no one has to prepare. You can't prepare for it really. But the first time I went there, I won that. So. But having said that, okay, if you're going to a tournament and the scenarios are known and you don't know them, then yes, that is a disadvantage.
Yeah.
And some players are very good at rocking scenarios, and figuring out which side to bid for, how much to bid. Again, our UK tournaments, we're quite they're quite simple, so it's like bid for a side. If you don't get it, you get the balance. whereas some European tournaments and American tournaments are a lot more I don't know, advanced, or in that they've got different bidding systems. So you can bid like the Australian bidding system, or you bid a certain number of points, the pleather bidding system, and so on. So it's more complicated, whereas ours tends to be more sort of simple.
And actually, if you don't know those scenarios, you could almost lose it in the bidding process, couldn't you? You could.
Yeah. So as I say, some players are very good at grok. So Steve Pleather, for example, is extremely good at just looking at the OB, looking at the scenario card, maybe looking at the boards, and figuring out which side he wants. And there's no doubt that I am less good at that. Obviously, I'm better than most players, but I will accept that I can sometimes start a scenario and then think, what have I done here? I don't often get in that situation because I'm not often playing competitively on scenarios I haven't studied. The only time that happens to me, apart from bounding first fire, but then everyone's in the same boat. But the only other time is in America. So in Aslock, say, where sometimes I'm playing people who've played it before. I sometimes bid for the wrong side, but obviously, the larger scenario, the less luck is a factor, and therefore, skill comes into it more. So the more that skill there is, the more chance there is of the better player coming through. But in high level tournaments with very good tournament directors, normally they've chosen the scenarios for a reason, and one of those is balance.
Yep. And I've got to point out, so I looked at the ASL rankings site, aslrankings.org. Do you know what your winning streak is? Do you know your number of winning streak?
That's the funny thing. I think I've got an incredibly good winning streak. It's about 30 or 40 games or something.
36 games, which is incredible. I mean, I know that you're not. I think you're above, obviously, the 50-50 rate, of any game, unless you're playing the Plevers and the McGraths and people like that. You're going to be always above 50-50. But even an 80-20, getting 36 on a trot is a pretty impressive streak. So that's impressive.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think I've got. That's the one. If the top players were measured by that alone, I would be top.
Yeah. Well, exactly that. You've got an 82.5 winning percentage on that site, which is, again, pretty impressive. I mean, it's you're playing top players generally. You don't, and that's the other thing, isn't it? When you're playing these tournaments and you're winning games and you're going deeper into the finals of these tournaments, you're playing some very, very good players. So I know you came second, through the skin of your teeth in a way from the last tournament that we were both at up in Blackpool against Ian.
Yeah. I was just you're right. That's one thing I don't like about some of the UK tournaments is when people say, "Oh, are we playing for points?" Pre-tournament, and I kind of think I don't like. I mean, I don't do it anyway because what am I going to gain? About 2 points. If I lose, I'll lose about 200. But I just feel playing for points should be in the tournament, the competition itself. Otherwise, you might as well say, "Well, play for points tomorrow." Against my mate. What difference does it make if it's on the Thursday before the tournament begins? It might as well be on Thursday 6 months before the tournament begins. But that's something we do. I don't think anyone else does it. And of course, we've got our own ladder, haven't we? We've got our own Crusaders ladder, which no one else knows anything about.
Right.
But again, that was one reason why because I think I got over 4,000 points, which no one else had ever got. So I was sitting on these 4,000. I was on about 4,002, and then I thought, if I'm that bothered about it, I'll never play another game. So I thought, to hell with it. I'll just keep playing.
Yeah.
And of course, eventually I lost, and I'll go below 4,000, and I'll never get above 4,000 again. Right. But it was fun to have it for a little while.
You did it. Favorite scenarios? Have you got any favorites?
It's interesting. I thought you might ask me that. I'm not really good at remembering the names of them. I was thinking about this. I was thinking, there's both an issue, isn't there, about what makes a really good scenario, and then as opposed to extremely memorable games that I've had, which are also favourite scenarios, you know. So I tend to like scenarios that have choices of OB, you know, a little bit of hip. I like scenarios that have got some, you know, concealment counters, some fog of war. Ideally, a small number of AFVs, the reinforcements, and you know, something along that. I'm not a great fan of scenarios with OBA because I find OBA extremely dicey. But in terms of, I really like, and again, there's certain designers I really like. So I really like Peter Stroif and Chris Matzai. You know, I like the Death to Fascism packs they brought out. I find their scenarios very sort of high level. Those sorts of scenarios where at average levels of play they can appear unbalanced, but at high levels of play they become balanced because, you know, people know what they're doing. And that goes the same with sort of friendly fire scenarios when they were publishing those. But in terms of names, I really liked. I'm terrible with the names of them. Yeah, there was one that Peter and Chris did. I played against Bo Simpson in Copenhagen a couple of years ago with Katyusha's Embrace, I think it's called. Yeah. So that's really good fun. I'll tell you another scenario. I was thinking about this. I thought another scenario I really enjoyed playing was with you guys. You know, remember we did the To the Manor Born. You know?
Oh, okay, yeah.
The buffaloes.
To the Matterhorn. Yeah.
That was a great scenario. So, I mean, when it goes down to the last dice roll and all that, as it did, and there was swings and, you know, your hero running around, and that was we did it all on Skype. That was a really good, fun scenario. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah. And do you have any memorable scenarios that you've played, like in finals or anything like that? Has there been one that stood out to you in terms of like how close it was, or how many memorable moments from that?
Yeah. No, I think when I went to Albany the first few times, the first time I went, I think I played Gary Trezor, who used to run it. You know, he was a great guy, and he had a really good ability to how can I put this, sort of tempt players over, you know, get the best players in, you know, and that might be by saying, Bob, you know, the only reason you don't come is because you're going to get thrashed by Toby or whatever it might be, you know, and then Bob will be, right, I'm coming, you know, whatever it might be, you know. But I'd never played any of the top US players, I don't think, until I went to Albany, and I played Paul Sidhu, who's a superb player, you know. We had this excellent scenario set on one of the Stalingrad maps, you know, historical ASL maps. I can't even remember the name of the scenario now, but it was I was defending, you know, which is I'm very good at doing, and he did a superb attack. I'll be honest, I did a superb defense, really close game, great game. He won, but it was great because he was like the first world-class top American I played. And I felt that I'd acquitted myself well. Do you know what I mean? And I heard, I wasn't like earwigging. I was just walking, as you do, around the hotel. I heard Gary talking to Paul, you know, because Gary didn't know. He knew I was one of the top European players, but he didn't know. You know, he'd invited me over and said, "Look, if you want to play the top players, come here." And he was talking to Paul, and he said something. How did you find playing Toby? What's he like as a player? And Paul said something like, oh, "Man, he's world class. He's world class." That just made the whole trip worthwhile. I thought, you know, one of the top US players said that he thinks I'm world class. And then I played, you know, J.R. Tracy, all these other guys, and you know, some of them I beat. Bob Bendis, great player. I played Steve. Unfortunately, it wasn't a great scenario I played with Steve, but you know, he
clever, yeah,
clever, yeah. So and then, you know, so that was a great scenario. And the other good thing was when Paul Sidhu came over to Copenhagen a few years ago, I don't know, about 5 years ago, he and I both got into the final. So this was like a rematch, you know. And I can't remember the name of the scenario, but I managed to win. You know, I managed to win. And Paul's great because he's got this sort of notebook that he writes down new rules he's learned, and little tactics. And he taught me a new rule, but I managed to come up with a tactic that was sort of he wrote in his book, and I thought, again, that's a little victory there.
Right. Well, we're gonna
talk
about
Japanese breaking into half squads or something, so to win. So that was good. But I've had loads of good tournament games, but those two stand out in my head, I suppose. Yeah.
It's incredible that you can be recognised as being world class and still not the best in your street. If you've got your local players being so good. But, we have to talk about your amazing piece. So the Franc Tireur have published from the cellar, pack 11. Toby, you can pronounce this.
I can pronounce this.
Right, yeah.
AS self-defense. Is that wrong?
That's right. AS self-defense manual. Manual of AS self-defense. Yeah, so it's not a self-defense manual. It's the AS self. Yes, it was a sort of play on obviously letters and words that seems to have
Let's go.
completely wasted. I shouldn't have bothered. I just call it I call it the manual.
Yeah. So talk us through how it came about and how long it took you to write.
Should we say what it is first?
Yeah.
So people might not have heard of it. Yeah.
So basically, it is a player's guide I wrote to help people learn and improve their defensive strategies in ASL. And it I think it comes in at 38 pages. So it's not an article. It takes up the whole issue of that publication. I mean, there's an argument that it could have been published as, the manual, and but I'm just pleased it came out, So yeah, basically, I think my earliest email, I was digging through my old emails actually, and the earliest reference I could get was 2008 to it, when I was emailing Chaz Argent of MMP, saying I started writing the manual. I'm up to 5,000 words, already. Without breaking sweat. So it must have been, what's that? That's 12, 14 years ago or something that I must have started writing it. And my idea was, the reason I was able to start writing it was a bit like you, Martin. So how old would I have been then? My late 30s. I went part-time at work, so I went down to about 0.5, and just as an experiment to, have more spare time. And I thought, well, now that I've got more spare time, I can do some projects, that I don't normally have time to do. And one of them was writing. So I've written for a few other things, like some of my other hobbies, like Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, so articles for magazines and stuff. But I'd thought, what's missing? It's a guide to how to play ASL. No one's ever written one. There's millions of articles. And of course, this is before the internet became lots of websites, like Jim Bishop's excellent website, which has got lots of superb, articles on tactical play. But I thought no one's written an all-encompassing guide, player's guide. And I think, again, one thing that alerted me to that, I think, was reading, what's his name? Mark Pitcav. Is it Pitcavage or Pitcavage?
Yeah, Pitcavage.
Pitcavage on the his good website, Desperation Morale, And I think I'm sure I've read somewhere he's noticed that no one had ever written a player's guide. And I think he's stated in the past that it's a sort of project that he might have to take up the mantle of, good luck to him. But I suppose the thing that I thought I could bring to it is also, I am a very good player, so it's all well and good. Mark Pitcavage is a very good scenario designer. I really like some of his scenarios. He's not renowned as a world-class player. And I think that carries weight, doesn't it? Because if you're going to read a player's manual, the first thing I'd be good doing is, well, who is this guy? You know, what's his world ranking? You know, and so I thought I can bring that, and yeah, I started writing, and I had this sort of massive surge early on, and then completely ran out of steam. You know, completely, I got sick of it, and I'm no good at you know, technology or doing illustrations, so I just had this enormously tedious Word document that just went on and on and on. You know, I was adding bits and pieces to it till it got to the point where I was just sick of the sight of it. I couldn't even bear to reread it. You know, just these black and white pages. You know, like however many there were, 50 odd. I don't know, even I can't even remember now. And it was progressing in fits and starts, you know, bits and pieces. And I was thinking as I was writing, I thought, I haven't even started the attacking bit yet. Like, how do you smoke when you're, you know, assault move? You know, I thought so. It became, and then I'd started working full time again by then. So I thought, oh, this is never going to happen. But I can't remember. I think I eventually came up with this idea that, oh, why don't I just, you know, because I started on defending. Why don't I just finish the defending bit? And I knew there wasn't that much more to do. So basically, I think it was in Bournemouth. I was going to intensive fire, however many years ago. I basically hired a hotel room from something like Monday. And then sort of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I just locked myself in the hotel and finished it. And then it was done. I submitted it to MMP again. And for whatever reason, it you know, it didn't go up the production schedule. You know, I think Chaz did a bit of work on it. And then in the end, as I emailed him and said, look, if you don't mind, are you okay if I try to get it published elsewhere? And he said, that's fine. So I sent it to Xavier. And he said, yeah, we'll do it. And, you know, he's got it published in no time.
Yeah.
And he did all the illustrations, or his team did, you know, nothing to do with me, those illustrations. I mean, I put in like the text, something like brackets illustration. He came up with the illustrations, you know. So that's all it. And I can see, I mean, having reread it, I did reread it now that it's been published. I find it a lot easier to read now that it's been published properly. And I can see there are some gaps in it. I can see, you know, obviously I noticed them more, I think, because I'm like, oh, for God's sake. So, for example, I think there's a chapter on fortifications and tunnels. And it's like, you can find the bit on fortifications, but I can't find anything I've written on tunnels in it. So I'm going to have to say, yeah, well, the section on tunnels is waiting until the last turn when it's going to emerge. So I'm going to have to dig around and see if I ever did write anything on tunnels. I mean, funny enough, Xavier never got back. No one seems to have noticed. Oh, where's the bit on tunnels? As I say, it's wait until the last turn.
Do you think you'll ever get round to doing an attacking guide?
No. It's I've just spent. You know,
right.
I just completely and utterly, as I say, hopefully someone else can do it. And but there's so much to say. I mean, it was interesting because I was looking at Jim emailed me, Jim Bishop, the other day, and he was saying, "What do you think of the stuff that that I've written?" You know, and I had a look through it, and it's excellent. But I also realised reading his stuff that my manual is quite general, isn't it? You know, I looking back, I hardly ever quote rules in it at all. You know, I think there's one reference to like A4, you know, something like A4.127. You know, 38 pages. It's mostly because, unfortunately, once I'm reading an article that starts quoting rules, I really want to sit down, get the rule book out in the quiet, you know, and put my glasses on and then start checking through it all, you know. Whereas if I'm reading sort of more general stuff that doesn't require me looking at the rule book, I find it much easier to just keep going. So as I say, and I was, as I said in the sort of introduction to it as well, it is bitty. There's little recollections of mine, and I know I use quite sort of flowery language sometimes, or, you know, go off on asides. So it's almost like reflections or, you know, meditations of defending an ASL. that's just my style. And as I say, people who've read it have said they've given me feedback. They've normally said they found it useful. They've learned something, and they found it quite fun to read.
Yeah, it definitely is. Do you ever wonder or worry that you're making your opponents better, and this is going to make your job harder?
It's interesting you say that, and I had thought about that at the start. Yeah, when I was still, going to tournaments regularly, I thought, why am I telling all my secrets to my opponents? And I had to sort of have a think about that. But I think with age, I've become more, I became more relaxed about it really, and I thought, well, this is like kind of giving something back to the hobby, and it would be great, wouldn't it, if you and you two guys read it and then suddenly you're as good as me. That would be fantastic.
I want my money back. It didn't work today.
Best 30 quid you've ever spent in ASL terms, but that's not going to happen, is it? You'll pick up some tips, hopefully, but I don't think anyone's going to suddenly start kicking my ass, because some of it's intuitive almost, isn't it? It's like Gary Kasparov writing something on chess. It's sort of, you gain inklings into sort of thought processes, and so there are tips there and some general things. So it should improve, hopefully, general level of play.
Yeah.
But as I say, I used to be. I did give that some thought, Dave. It is funny you mentioned that. I did think, is it wise to basically, effectively, open up my secrets,
right,
and say this is what I do when I defend. These.
It's your toolbox in a way, isn't it?
It's my toolbox, exactly. Open up my toolbox and share it with everyone.
Yeah.
But I want to be honest with you, I want to play better players.
Right.
That's more fun for me. So, and as I say, I'm not as sort of that. I've got nothing to prove in terms of winning tournaments or my world ranking. I mean, even if it drops a bit, you could still say, well, for 15 years I was in the top 5. And all it'll drop down to is something like 6 or 7. If I lose a few games, I've got won, I don't know, 20 tournaments or something, loads of them. So again, it's not like, oh, I've got to win this tournament. It's sometimes I quite like seeing other people win it. It doesn't bother me.
Are you as good at other games as you are at ASL?
Not as good.
Okay.
I'm quite good. Again, it's interesting you say that, because again, rereading the manual, I did notice that I alluded to some advice that I could then never find. So I think somewhere in the manual I allude to, as I previously said, one of the best ways to improve your play is to play other strategy games. And I couldn't find it anywhere that I previously said it at all. So I'll say it now. Yeah, I think obviously you can't improve your rules knowledge by playing a card-driven game on World War One from GMT Games, for example. But you can improve your tactical knowledge a bit, and you can improve your strategic knowledge. Victory conditions. If you start looking at victory conditions, any game, and that could be Settlers of Catan type stuff. Generally speaking, strategy goes across lots of games. So I am quite good at other board war games, and I'm quite good at figure games that I play as well. But the one I'm best at is ASL.
Right. Yeah. Right. Do you think that anybody can get to your standard of play?
I mean, obviously, well, the obvious answer is yes, isn't it? Because there are others, So, and there are players who are better than I am. But I mean, in what? How do you mean? Do you mean?
So me and Dave are very sort of middle ability kind of players. If we put the time in, can we, one day be able to give you a good match every time?
Yes, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Jim Bishop. The best article I read on his website was he wrote something. I think it was called "What Makes What Makes
That's
Really
true.
Good Players? What makes
Yeah.
world-class players?" He was talking about they do this, they do that, and they do the other. And I thought, yeah, I do all those things, you know, but I don't have to think about it that much. I'd automatically do it. And it is true that some players plateau, don't they? You know, so I don't embarrass some UK players, but you know, like the ones who always end up with a wooden spoon at the tournament, you know, and they'll almost joke about it. They're going to drink some, you know, some ales and stuff and have a laugh, but they don't seem, you know, they sort of drive a tank up and stop in your line of sight in your front arc and expect to defeat you. So that doesn't happen. You know, you're not gonna. And they'll do it again. You know, so I think, I don't know. I don't know if I don't know really. I don't know what it's like in any sport, isn't it? You know, do you, or well, I don't know. Can anyone become a world-class chess player? I think you can. I suppose if there's infinite capacity for improvement, isn't there? You know.
I suppose the thing is, people are different, aren't they? So if you invariably go for a drink and a chat and a couple of friendly games and you don't do well in the tournament, you're probably never going to be a world-class player, are you? But I mean, do you think you could? I mean, I'm not asking you to do it. Could you tutor somebody like me to be a very high-class player, or do you think?
I think I could get your play level up. Yeah, if you just played me all the time, I played differently. So I wasn't just going to defeat you. I'd say how I defeated you and why I defeated you and what you could improve. You know, and if you were sort of open to the advice. And you know, maybe while we're playing, I'll say, "Why did you fire that? There's no point doing that. You know, what are you doing? You know." As I said, I mean, remember, as I said at the start, I got beat every week week in, week out. You know, I learned, I guess, I suppose, and I learned from one of the best, so that helps, doesn't it? You know,
how many games? How many games is week in, week out? Was it 20, 10, 3, and then you started beating him? I mean, what kind of time span are you talking about then?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, so if I start playing Mike in about 89, till about sort of 94, it's 5 years. I suppose it's week, you know, more or less week in, week out. And he'd be winning sort of 8 out of 10 games, something like that. And then gradually my win rate would increase. But I don't know. I wouldn't be able to say what someone plateaus at. You know? I would say I could improve. I mean, do you remember when I went part-time, I was thinking, you know, I wonder if I could make any money out of my hobby. I sometimes say this at work, you know, or, you know, people who know me. I'm not. I'll say, oh yeah, I play war games, and most people are quite interested. Oh, you play war games? Yeah. Or I'm going to a tournament. Oh, you're going to a tournament? Yeah. And I'll explain that I'm one of the best players in the world at this game that no one's ever heard of, you know. And I say, well, you've heard of Risk. Oh yeah, no, Risk. Well, Risk is one war game. There's lots of different war games. So there's this one war game called Advanced Squad Leader, one of the best in the world. I said, and it makes me no money. If I was as good at this as I was at, you know, at chess or tennis, or you know what I mean, I could do it for my living. It gets me the odd tournament prize. So I mean, it's nice to be very good at something. I think it's generally good, isn't it? Whatever narrow little specialism you have, you know, I'm very pleased that I'm extremely good at, you know, our game, you know, even though no one's ever heard of it. Anyway, I'm digressing. So I tried to make some money out of it, and I did put something on we were talking about it. I did put something on the Games God forums, and I thought, you know what? Does anyone want to be coached? You know, people get coached to improve their tennis serve. People get coached to improve their golf swing. You know, I'm very good at ASL. I'm like an ASL pro. You want to improve your game, and I will do that with you. And I had one guy, which was Richard Dagnall, who, and I think the only reason he did it was, of course, his job was as a life coach. So to him, it was normal. That's what he does, you know. So to him, it's like, oh, improving my hobby. Yeah. Where do I sign up? You know. Whereas other people were sort of like, well, you're charging people to, to improve their play. Well, I'd do it for free. But I thought, well, hang on a minute, I'm driving over to his house. Anyway, and that was interesting. That was a good experience. Sort of, and I think I did improve his play, and I carefully choose scenarios that would sort of and I basically, as I say, went into a coaching mode. I wasn't playing to win at all. Hopefully I'd have my fun was to be derived in improving his play.
Right.
And he said that it improved.
Yeah.
So I think it did.
In an alternate world, in a parallel universe, you've got an OnlyFans site that all of us ASL players are subscribed to see different tips of, not those tips, but ASL tips. You're gonna make thousands of pounds on that. But
it's just the way it works.
Yeah. What don't you like about ASL?
Without naming individuals.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've not had any bad experiences play wise. I think there's some. I haven't got. There's so much stuff. I'm fairly disorganized, so I guess you guys have probably got all your scenarios in folders. I've got my scenarios just all in 2 enormous boxes, basically, just shoved it. If I have to find a scenario, it takes me ages. I'm at the sort of Bob Bendis level of organisation. I suppose I'm better than Bob because at least I organise my counters. Whereas mine's, I remember hearing tales about Bob just sort of getting a box, opening it up. He's got loads of counters in, and I don't mean uncut counters. I mean, just from previous games. There's some American paratroopers in here. Let's get these out. I'm not at that level. I organise them, but my scenarios are so there's such a colossal amount of stuff.
Yeah.
My little pet hates in ASL would be I don't like loads of SSRs. I don't like. I love Bounding Fire Productions, but I don't like it when they bring out something. It's like, oh yeah, we're bringing in second line Russians.
Yep.
I'm like, just leave it the way it is. Try to work within the system. You don't have to expand the system to these other things. I like historical map boards. I mean, nutty rules. I think, say the foxhole rules are completely insane. And nonsensical, and that's my main little gripe. But and I think ASL, I think it does break down at larger levels. So if you have lots of tanks, like some of these Kursk scenarios, I kind of think, or even like when you've got all the maps of Stalingrad and stuff, I'd be like, well, why are we playing a squad level game? Why aren't we playing a company commander game?
Right.
That's what that's set for. That's the whole point of having, different games cope with different things. So, I mean, I would like, as on my sort of bucket list, I would like to play that scenario. I think in Bounding Fire produced, what was it? The Kursk,
the flying turrets.
Flying turret. Exactly, that's it. I'd like to play flying turrets just for the experience, and to not have to worry too much about where am I going to move this tank. Just go, just move them forward, stop and shoot, and just chuck loads of dice. It would be an experience, but it's not ASL.
Yeah, it's a bit like a hot dog eating competition, isn't it? It's like just stuffing it down your throat as much as you can. Just don't worry about finesse.
Yeah. I mean, I think ASL works better with companies. Maximum level. Medium to small size scenarios work best with ASL. Once they start getting large, the rules break down a little bit.
Having said that, have you played some of the big campaign games?
I have in the past, yes, less so now. And I've always found that they one side gets the advantage early on, and basically, although the other side can hang on in there, it can be quite depressing just getting chewed up and giving up ground, and sort of waiting for the reinforcements to come. So most campaign games I've ever played have petered out after a couple of campaign dates. because one side seems to get an initial advantage, and you can sort of think, well, okay, I could keep going, but that 1 in 10 chance that I'll be able to turn this around, but that's going to, in the time that I invest in that, I could have played a dozen other scenarios. So, but I really like playing scenarios on historical map boards. So I get a real buzz out of thinking this is what the terrain actually looked like. So those are some of my other favourite scenarios are on historical map boards.
Okay. Do you keep up with all the latest productions and everything? Do you buy everything as it comes out, or are you?
No. I mean, I used to do that a bit more, but less so now, unless it's something that particularly interests me, because let's be honest, we'll never play everything that we own anyway. So I'm not a collector. No, there are collectors in our hobby. Good luck to them. But I try to get stuff that I will play and want to play. So, and of course the amount of snowball, doesn't it? You've got Hasmo and various war games clubs, produced. I mean, back in the day, it was like the Paddington Bear Pack, wasn't it? They're an ASL club. Yeah. And you'd get, every year you get your share point, and maybe a rally point and a friendly fire. There's so many now. It's sort of spoiled for choice. And if they turn up in a tournament, quite often, tournament director will do a pack of all the scenarios anyway. So, otherwise you're paying 20 quid to get one scenario that you just want to have a look at. So I'm not up to date on everything. I won't be.
And Korea?
Really, Martin, I intend to win everything.
Do you have any thoughts on Korea? Did you pick that up?
I didn't. Partly, I'm just not that interested in the Korean War. I've read one book about it in my lifetime, and I've probably read 1,000 books on World War II. So each to their own. I wouldn't mind if someone else had all the stuff. I'd probably have a game. But I think it's probably about 100 quid, isn't it? The Korean stuff. So I'm just not that invested in it. But from what I've heard, it's interesting, and the Red Chinese have got a very interesting sort of rules set. And I did see Andy Hershey, I think, who wrote it. We were having a discussion. He was telling me all about the rules and stuff that he put in. It sounded very interesting. But as I say, it's not an area that really interests me. Just as the Spanish Civil War wouldn't be either. I'm in it for World War II.
Yeah. Okay. So you got tournament plans? You're gonna be at the next Intensive Fire and Bounding Fire.
Is Intensive Fire still going?
No, I think it's Bounding Fire now.
Bounding First Fire, yeah. So Heroes is
this weekend
on Thursday. Yeah. So today's Tuesday, isn't it? So yeah, Thursday I'm driving up there. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to try not to make the same mistake I did.
Oh yeah.
When I got to Birmingham and realised I'd forgotten the keys to my mum's house up there. I turned around and drove back. Yeah. That was like one of the most frustrating things I've ever done in my life. Embarrassing myself. But because both my parents come from Blackpool.
Yeah.
So we've got this sort of tiny terrace house we use as effectively a holiday home.
It's a bad day, Toby, when losing against me in a scenario is not the worst thing that happens to you in a day.
I enjoyed that scenario. That was good fun.
Yeah, it was quite unbalanced, wasn't it? That was one of the Red Factories.
It was good. But that's why, as I say, it's those scenarios are useful, aren't they?
I think it's and we're always appreciative of you playing unbalanced scenarios against us, because I think it gives us a chance and makes you work a little bit for them. So we enjoy that.
No, I managed to. I'll always have to the matter born. I'll always be able to say.
You've unlocked the door now for that. Everyone knows how to win that one now. Is there anything else, Toby, you want to say, or Martin, you got any other questions?
Well, I was wondering if you could quickly turn your camera and show us your trophies. If they
I'll have to walk over there. Yeah, so
that old, you'll be all right.
I can. I don't know if you're getting a good
Look at that.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, that's some of them. These guys are Napoleonic Spaniards, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's a few of them. Unfortunately, over the years, plenty of others have, in transit or in the suitcase, have collapsed by the time I've got home. I always think to tournament directors, if you've got people coming with a suitcase, they've made this lovely plastic model. How do you think how is that going to survive? Getting home. So I've got quite a few that have fell by the wayside.
Yeah.
And so, any other plans? You're going to come to Double One in June, perhaps?
Yeah. I think I'll go back to Double One. I think I remember telling you both that I utterly loathe driving around the M25. But I think this year I'll do it. But there I'll just play friendly games. So maybe the three of us can get some games in there.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll definitely be up for that. That would be good. It's not that far away from me.
Right.
Yeah. But we just need to get British players playing abroad more. That's what we need.
How do we do that? How does that happen?
I don't know. I keep banging on to Craig and Mark, because they could win tournaments abroad, and it would improve their play as well. They're already good. But anyone. I mean, I think Richard Dagnall went to Copenhagen a year or two ago. So anyone can do it. And I mean, Phil Draper, he's over in Norway. He's got no excuse.
He's not really playing, is he? I think it's
out from under that mountain, and I know he'll be blinded by the sun. He needs to get down there. He's got no excuse. But everyone, I would say, if you want to improve your play, as I say, it's your best way is through better opponents, better players than you. Learn from them. Don't just watch them in amazement as they defeat you. You've got to improve your own play, haven't you? You've got to think, how did they do that? What can I do to stop it? And as I say, you'll increase your pool of opponents by going to tournaments, and people play differently abroad. They've got different styles, different speeds, and everyone should try to go to. Every ASL player should go to ASLOC.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, and do it for the whole thing. Do it for the full week.
Yep.
Have the full experience.
I did it, and I had the headache to prove it at the end of it. The end of that week is a very fuzzy head.
It's hard, isn't it? It's hard. Yeah. I was vomiting on day 3. I'll tell you some. I'll share a story which is bad against myself. Really, when I first went to ASLOC, I was really stupid. I can't believe I was this dumb. But I was looking on the map, thinking, I can't get a direct flight to Cleveland. And I was looking on the map of America, and for some reason I was thinking of the size of the UK. So I was looking at the distance between Chicago and Cleveland. And I was thinking, well, it's just like between Leeds and Sheffield or something. It doesn't look far, so this sort of trick of geography played upon my head. I booked a flight to Chicago, and then I thought I'll just get the coach, and it's like, oh yeah, you can get the coach. Yeah, it's about 8 hours. What? Yeah, I thought it was going to be like a hop on a bus. So I stayed up all night on this, on this Greyhound bus, which was a horrific experience, and then got there, lost my first game, and that was me done. Which just went to bed then for the rest of the day. But yeah, it was that was funny. My first ever ASLOC was a disaster.
How many times have you been to ASLOC?
3 times or something. I mean, but the last time I went was much better because I already knew personally or by reputation all the other top American players. So I was able to say, let's play this, let's play that, and arrange games in advance. That's the thing to do, is, and that's what I was able to do. The first time I went, I didn't know anyone, so I was just sort of playing random blokes. I suppose, I knew a couple of Europeans, and I think they sort of introduced me to another couple of guys. So it does help if you know people, or you know people who know people. You know, you can sort of be introduced to, oh, this is such and such a person. Oh, hello, yeah. And of course, with the internet and the Game Squad, the sort of pool of people we talk to is much larger anyway, isn't it?
That's true.
So, and through what do you call it, Vassal,
yeah,
you know, which I've never played.
You don't do it. So why don't you play Vassal?
I like the boards and the counters, and you know, I mean, to me, it's a board game. If I want to play a computer game, there's plenty of computer games I can play. You know, so it's a board game, and I find that I think my play would suffer as well, because you know when you're playing on the boards, of course, your eye is drawn to where the counters are, isn't it? You know where the counters are because they're 3D. Whereas on Vassal, I think it'd be much easier to miss stuff because your eye isn't drawn to these things. You know, you don't notice more. Oh, there's a unit there, and I'm going to be running into the open ground. You know, so I know you're hard on yourself sometimes, but I think you shouldn't be hard to running an open ground in front of troops when I've got the boards or on Vassal. Can see, I can see the counters.
Right.
So I would say I have the advantage in that respect. And I like rolling the dice and all the physical stuff. And I suppose the other reason is my laptop is ancient. It's prehistoric. I think I have tried to download it. It didn't work. So unless you were sitting at my shoulder, I didn't know what to do.
Well,
so the first thing you'd say is, right, get down to PC World. I think that's the first advice you'd give me. But yeah, that's that. But it is useful for some people. I can't believe, Martin. I tell you what, I can't believe you play by mail. Just I know I've listened to the episode when you explained it. It just sounds excruciating to me. Just can't think of anything worse than reading through hex by hex, and then you stop them and say, "Oh, I'm gonna shoot." I'd have thought it would take.
It's surprising if you're playing somebody who's reasonably quick with the replies. It's surprising how you can sort of get through it, and it's a different play style, but you do get used to it. It's not what I normally do. I've been doing it for the tournament, but
no, as a fair play to you, but I suppose if you are back and forth all the time, maybe it's a tiny scenario, but I'm not sure exactly. I thought there's better ways of playing the game. Even like when we do on Skype, it's not that I've played loads of guys on Skype, over the COVID pandemics. That's why I started doing it, and that works pretty well. I was playing Bo Simpson and Michael Hastrup-Leth on Skype a couple of weeks ago, and that of course you're calling out. Well, as I'm going, okay, my squad in Y4 is moving to Y3 for 1, and you go through it that way. But I found it you get into it quite quickly. In small scenarios, it works. The more stuff you've got, and you miss things, don't you? Or you'll say, "Oh, I thought I'm going to shoot at your guy in X6, Toby," and I'm like, "But he's in X7." Oh, and all that,
yeah. Toby, I'm not going to keep you very much longer because I know you've got a limited amount of time there. So thank you. I'm sure we'll do this again at some point, and we'll play again.
It was good to talk to you. Yeah,
it's been.
I'm looking forward to beating you at 1-1 with the tips that I'm going to read in Franc Tireur's magazine.
yeah.
So I'll be the defender. Yeah.
I think we've got a game lined up, haven't we? I think
and actually I am defending in that. It's from Red Barricades, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I was up against it. I'm even more up against it now.
Toby, we really appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time. It's been great. Thanks for all the help and advice you're giving us as well. The tips are great. We love them. We've got another one coming up next time on pillboxes, and I'm just doing that from you. So thank you. Keep them going. You genuinely give the video, the podcast, a bit of legitimacy from a tactical point of view, which we don't give.
Style.
Yeah, so we're very much appreciative of that, and keep up the good work, and good job on the amazing article that you can get from Franc Tireur, number pack 11, from all good.
Yeah, no, I'll be interested to hear. And everyone thrives on feedback, don't they? So the more people can comment on it or something, then that sort of provides me with inspiration if I do want to do some more writing. And I'm like, oh yeah, so many people said they really enjoyed it, and I'll write something. I'll do the tunnels now. But yeah, no, and you guys also keep up your good work. It's such good fun listening to you. Even if you're talking about anything,
anything but ASL. No more ASL.
Yeah, forget the ASL. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Okay, well, thanks for your time, Toby. And
no worries.
See you then.
Take care.
With that said, Martin, I think Toby was excellent today, wasn't he? He was in good form. It's always good to see him. So I think with that said, we're all done, wrapped up.
Yeah.
And we're off to no one's off to.
None of us are going to Bounding Fire, no.
So we can't make it. But we will be playing again shortly. And we're going to play. I think the next scenario we're going to play is Red Dawn, and that's because Toby has done a defense in here that I will not look at. I promise you.
Okay.
Beforehand, if I'm defending, we'll roll randomly to decide who defends, and then we compare our defense to Toby's defense.
I have played it actually. I played it with Schofield a long time ago. Yeah,
pretty good player.
I'm just going to say right now, he made the Don very red when I tried to cross it. But there we go.
Good stuff. Okay, all right. Until next week. Well played this time, and maybe next week I'll beat you.
We'll see.
All the best. Bye bye.
Bye bye.